Davlarino.
Morning, sir.
You alright?
Very good.
It's Monday.
Yes.
We tell everyone it's Monday. Yeah, it's Monday.
Yeah.
Goes out tomorrow.
Happy days.
I know. Should we have a wander around?
Let's have a look.
See what's what. Before we get back to the endless fun we're about to have, while I show you the nonsense we're doing, can I ask a favour and get you to smash the subscribe button? It massively helps us out because according to the analytics, that's funny, 61% of people who watch this don't subscribe. It does help us out. It means I can pay Dav, which is always important, isn't it, mate?
Thanks, mate.
Yeah. But also, it allows us to sort of do bigger and better things and sort of attract people in and do things with cars that we want to do, and allows us, it just gives us, yeah, it just gives us more freedom. Not trying to make it a popularity contest, but when you understand what goes on in the background, or for those of you that do know, it is a big thing. It's what you know what allows us to do this anyway, and if you lot ain't watching, then what's the point of doing it? So thank you very much, enjoy, and we'll get straight back to it. Hoity hoy.
Zoom in.
I know, it needs to like step
Too
back.
close.
Feels like it's like all right.
We're here for another thrilling instalment
of Tossers on Tuesday. Tosh on Tuesday.
Tosh.
Technical Tidbits Tuesday. Or is it time to go home yet Tuesday?
Yes.
It'll be all right. Let's go through it quick. George's RS6 is all back together. Hasn't smoked yet.
Yes.
Car might have fixed it.
Carl fixing an RS6.
Whoa, things to be heard. Never heard such nonsense in all my days. Other George, different George. George's is white RS6 is done. We're waiting on the parts to arrive for the McLaren, and then we can drop the engine out of that. The Golf is done and the MOT is passed, so Juden has to clean it. We've got 2 dents to get out of it. I'm going to get the wheels refurbed, and then that'll go up for sale. So if you want a Golf GTI, hit me up, yo. Waiting on engine parts for the Greek V10, so I think we're just waiting on valve train now. Oh no, waiting on rods and pistons. Sorry, valve train's here. Waiting on rods and pistons. The same for the blue one. Valve train's here for that. Waiting on rods and pistons. Gearbox 1 seems, we've rebuilt the hydraulics and we've rebuilt the pump, and it seems to behave, but we need to drive it again and make sure. So that's just a case of keep on testing. Roberts is, we're waiting on a load of parts, so we're waiting for suspension, some rocker covers and a few other bits and pieces, but we don't get deliveries on a Monday because people don't work on the weekends. So our first delivery of the week is a Tuesday, so hopefully we'll get everything tomorrow. We can get that knocked out. Tins is all done. He's coming this afternoon for it, so we've done service and just done a list of little tidbits on it, trims, clips, that sort of thing, that we'd found when we inspected it. So that's going today. We've got to put ethanol sensor on TBU, finish the service, get the windows tint, and Jordan's got to ceramic coat it before it goes to Africa.
Africa?
Yep.
Down in Africa.
That is the new owners taking it to Africa. So let's go in. Matt's parts for his cylinder header here, so that can go off to get machined. Derek's Lambo, we're waiting to hear back companies on the Rams. I think that's about everything out here. And Jordan's just washed his car.
Must be a slow day for him.
I know. No, I think he's, he had a puncture, bless him, so he had to put another tyre on it. That thing eats tyres.
Mate, they're not cheap, they're big
No.
old tyres.
So he's just sorted it out, I think. So, right, let's have a wander around inside.
Let's do it.
Come inside and I got cold, so put a coat on.
Nice.
It's because my new sick fade, my head's cold now.
Sick fade, bruv.
I know. Get ripped.
Insert comments here.
Yes. Shit if I cut my hair, shit if I don't cut my hair.
It's going to be time for the winter bottle
The hat, I wore the hat yesterday.
Yep.
He had his first outing, so waiting for Snap-on to drop their new winter line. Matt's that's just done service, auxiliary belt, and because it's a facelift, you've got to take all the scuttle trims off to get the sub out to get to pollen filters on these. There's 2 nuts that are not magnetic, so don't drop them because they're aluminium nuts that hold the sub on behind a washer bottle, and yeah, you can drop them, which I have done before, and then your magnet doesn't pick them up. That's not good. I'd make a fortune. Should make aluminium magnets. Yeah. Yep. Carbon fibre duct tape. That's it. Honestly, there's a future in my head. So Ernie will be back later today to pick that up, so we're just finishing off now and then he can go on road test. Mitch is on with an inspection, and then we can go back, let him know what other bits and pieces he needs doing. Tell you what, that's got a nice bend in the lower quarter. You seen that? That's outwards, that is, as well, and it's plastic, that trim. That's what people can do now then. What else? Update on a Noble, but you'll have to wait till Friday. Yep. If you're really on my socials, I dropped a bollock. You might have seen it, but we've deleted it now, so you'll find out tomorrow. Matt's pretty much got engine bay back together on a Ferrari. We're waiting on some spark plugs, and then we can roll it off and wire up the rat's nest inside, and then we can fire it up, hopefully, on MoTeC and get it tuned. Cool. But that went back together all right, pretty much, didn't it? Yeah, not too bad. New injectors, new coils. We've got to make plates to hold the coils in. So they're cast aluminium with HT leads underneath. So I'm going to have plates laser cut, put some holes in them for the coils, and then bolt the coils to them. So very cool. That should be all right. What's going on in Carl's corner? Not a lot. Somber comment you'd like to add for the day? That is it. That's it. That is Carl's comment. Yeah. Silence is bliss. The input I've got. Yeah. Sometimes the best comment is no comment. Is no comment at all. Can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. This is true. And if you're too stupid, don't say anything. And if you're happy, don't tell me. If you're miserable, don't tell me. No? I've got something for next week, I think. I need time to... Yeah. Well, it'll take you a week. It'll take me a whole week to come up with something that's not miserable. People have requested Carl's corner. I know, I'm not sure why. I don't know either. They like the misery. They're the people in school who would stab themselves with their compass. Yeah. You remember, there was always that one kid in the back of the class that would just like stab. They liked the pain. Everyone else on YouTube's like too happy, aren't they? Like, yeah. So you're just trying to level it out. Level it out. I like it. You're the antidote to all that cheeriness and hype. This is real life. This is what it's like. Most people are miserable. Right. Anywho, you see what I have to put up with working in. We did this last week, didn't we? It went back, and he's had it back. I think he found some bits and pieces with the bodywork that had been done or something, so it's gone away and it's come back for him. Yep. He's got a Lotus in. Ooh. Yeah, it's quite cool, isn't it? They do look good, these. I would still have the 4-cylinder one over the V6. So that's the, what is that, the A35? Yeah. Yeah. I would still have that, I think. You like a 4-banger? More tunable. It's turbo, bro. Yeah. Superchargers suck. Do they suck? They blow, I suppose. They do blow. You do get negative inlet air pressure, so they kind of suck. But yeah, not sure about the colours, but it's got lovely interior. Tan leather is open. It is. That gear linkage is trick on these. I do like that. Yeah, we've showed that before, haven't we? And it smells like a new car. Yep. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay. Sweet. I think that's... What else we got going on? Dunno. Not a lot. What's happening in... We had a week of just getting stuff out. Engine room, no, still Lambo. I've got to finish that off. I think we just had a week of getting stuff out the door, didn't we? It's quite nice. Yeah, we finished some stuff. We finished some stuff. Started the, can't say too much, we started the green car behind us, and that's just obviously bored. I think we missed that because somebody was drilling. Oh, I know. Sorry. Go again. Honestly.
Take 3.
Working with him is like trying to carry a tray of ice through Sahara, I swear it.
The only time he ever does any work.
Yeah, I know.
As soon as the camera comes on, he's like, oh, I better do
I
something.
better look busy. What he hasn't realised is he's doing up. Everything's now snap.
I
what have
think
we got?
we're caught up then. We've got some questions, I imagine.
Yeah, you've like, what the hell is that, Dav? I'm like, pick some questions. So you've got like, my wedding speech was less than this. I know. Right, let's take a seat.
It's a selection. You don't have to go through all of them.
Do you want a seat? Are you all right?
I'm fine. I'm going to hover here.
Harvey Fennell, love the in-depth look at engine building. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, do you re-weigh the ring sets after gapping and rematch the components before taking material off the piston? I'd pretty much gap rings first, but if I'm honest, it would be a negligible amount. Unless you're having to strip masses of material out, it won't be much. Second, as you don't gap the ring set to the piston, what tolerance does the piston ring groove have? That's a good question. So we do measure the piston ring groove. I'll give my Wi-Fi password away again.
Back on the whiteboard.
And pin. So obviously got oil, second, and top. So my measuring center we measure the groove depth.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we measure the groove height.
Yep.
And then we will measure the rings. This one isn't, obviously you don't want them binding, but it's these that are more important. Because if they're too big, the piston rocks up and down, moves inside it. So we'd always measure this, because what the question is asking is, if you put your ring in the cylinder, oh, see how good my line is. Like,
Couldn't do that backwards.
Yeah. So that, I'll do it in red so everyone can see. Is 82.5 mil or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But that is also a fixed diameter, because the ring can't push out any more. So then you need a clearance between that and that. Yeah?
Yep.
If you don't have that clearance, if you haven't done any measurements and your rings are jammed between your bore and your piston, problems you will have. Oh, I got my pen. So yeah, we do measure that. Second, as you don't get a ring set to piston, what tolerance does a piston ring groove have? Because they're two different materials, they'll have different tolerances. I won't sit here and give out tolerances, because engine application, piston material, ring material, bore material, all has a massive effect. So piston manufacturers will normally give you all the dimensions that you need to know.
Yeah.
And that's it.
There we go.
So but yeah, we do check that. So it's piston, ring, groove height, and groove depth. And then obviously you measure your pistons.
There we go.
You coming in, Juden? No. Alright, that's fine. I'm going to pronounce this wrong name. I think his name's Sakib. Great video. Really appreciate the way you explained how weight makes such a difference in getting each piston assembly to a similar weight. I suppose the same applies to pistons bores. You will match them up to get the best tolerances. I'm sure the longevity of the engine will be better because of it. Do you have any thoughts on how such an engine will perform? What sort of differences do you notice after they are running? Smoother, more powerful, longer life. Haha! You can have it fast. No, what is it? You can have it fast, reliable, or cheap, but you can only pick two.
There you go.
Right. Yes, smooth is a big one. So you're trying to make the engine smoother. What you're trying to do is you're trying to remove any loss. So you kind of, I always try to describe it in two ways. So a cylinder head makes power and a bottom end supports it. So you go away and you get your head ported and polished, you put cams in it, you do a trick valve job. That all helps get air in and out of the engine. The top of the piston helps that, but a bottom end doesn't really make power. A bottom end only subtracts power. So frictional losses, heat losses, is a really interesting diagram. So a Formula 1 engine is the most efficient engine, ICE engine on the planet. So I think they're at like 54% efficient from the calorific value of the fuel. So the energy in the fuel to the energy put out the crankshaft.
Yeah.
So you think that's 54%. A road car is nowhere near that. Let's say if you're lucky, 30%. So the rest of that is noise, heat and friction.
Yeah.
So if you can reduce friction, which is the main thing we concentrate on, then that's super finishing, good clearances, so not so big that the engine rattles itself to death, not so tight that it's binding up or overheating your oil or anything like that. So if you can concentrate on reducing frictional losses, having a good balance, so there's not wasted energy in trying to hold the crankshaft together and bits and pieces like that, then yeah, you will find an engine is smoother. You will find an engine's more powerful bottom end wise because you lose less. But then if you do work on the head, you're more efficient. So Simon's Lamborghini, we did obviously built bottom end, super finished crank. I ported and polished the heads, and that he says that thing's like a night and day different car.
Wow.
But peak power, I think when we run it on a dyno, it was only like 20 horsepower up on what it was before. But he said how it went through the revs was completely different. So that's what you're looking for. Longer life is a hard one because it depends what you mean by longer life. At the end of the day, the majority of engines we build are either race engines, so they're lifed. There's no point building an engine that blows up on the last lap, or you run it until it breaks on the last lap. The result is more important than the refresh. So we never let engines get that far. So that's race engines. So like my R6 now, there's nothing wrong there, but the engine goes to be refreshed. And I'll put new valves in it, I'll put new springs in it, because it breaking is more costly than me doing it before it breaks, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then longer life, you would never really come to me to, I didn't say rebuild an engine. You can't ever say, oh, I'll build you an engine that lasts 100,000 miles. It's not like that. The engines we rebuild for road cars are because they're broken, so we rebuild them to fix them. We do race engines to get as much power as we can within the rules, and we do high performance engines to support the tuning pathway that the customer's gone down. So if it's an R8 and they want to strap a pair of twin turbos on it, then we do an engine package that supports that. If you didn't put turbos on it, the engine might perform worse than the naturally aspirated engine, because I'm going to use intake valve sizes or exhaust valve sizes that suit where the end goal is, or cams at or where the end goal is, or I'll use pistons at a lower compression, or I'll change all these things in the recipe to go down that pathway. And then if at the last minute you go, oh I just want to do, actually I'll leave it NA, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like the question that everyone will come to me and they'll go, oh, can you build my engine? Yeah, what's your end goal?
Yeah.
That's the first question, and then we can go, right, now I can advise you on where we need to go with that. So but running smoother, I think a lot of that is, I would say Simon's reply would to hit us building his Lamborghini engine, because he had a problem with his. We rebuilt it, put a lot of work into it, a little bit of the sort of the tuning. We tuned his NA, and he says it's better going for a rev range. But so I would say yes, but it depends what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Raymond Moody, awesome build video. Interesting what you were saying about the area of major thrust. Do the rings at no point vibrate around, or you build them in one orientation and when you strip it again after several thousand miles they're in the same orientation? I would have thought the crosshatch may act like rifling to a smaller degree and rotate them. Right, this come up on this chat. No, I don't believe piston rings rotate in the same way that a valve rotates, or a crankshaft and a camshaft rotate. So valves turn in the head when it's running. yes, the cross-hatching, I imagine, would act like a kind of rifling, but at the end of this, cross-hatching. So if there's one force going down, there's another force going up. If you run it, it would be an interesting test. They're never in exactly the same position, but the other side of it is I've never really stripped an engine and gone, oh, they've moved 6 degrees either, because there's other things that are more important than where the rings are when you've taken it out. If they do move, then in my opinion it will be a negligible
Negligee?
bloody hell negligible amount. Write how I should say that in the comments, for Christ's sake. Because if they're turning when the engine's rotating, you'll wear the ring out in the groove and you'll wear the groove out in the piston. So no, I don't believe rings rotate. I believe they might move. I don't think there's necessarily a measurement to it. I don't think it's massively important in how they move or if they move, but I always assemble it in the same way. Different manufacturers tell you to do it different ways, but for me, not having anything on major thrust, I need to test this.
Yeah.
I need to test this. It's just such a ball ache to test. Yeah. No, I don't think rings move. Sorry, I don't think rings rotate. Now, what I don't want to get sucked into here is, oh, but then when you take them out, they've moved. They might move. I don't think they rotate. So I don't think that for every 10,000 engine rotations, the rings moved 1 rotation. I don't think it's like that. Because the cross hatching is equal all the way around. And if it's not, your machinist is shit.
There you go.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Laurie Harper, fascinating stuff. With the very fine clearances, tolerances you're working to, does ambient temperature have any effect? Expansion, contraction of metal parts. Do you maintain a constant temperature set in the engine room? Yes, it's massive. Massive, massive, massive. Temperature, humidity, it's why that's climate controlled. Yeah, it's huge. So if you go out and you build an engine in your garage and it's cold, and then you take it apart in the summer and it's hot, it'll be different. So if you don't have a temperature controlled environment, or you're struggling with that, like if an engine's been sat outside, it's gone for a hot wash, say I put a crankshaft in a hot wash and take it out, I can't do anything with that crankshaft for like a day.
Right, that long?
Yeah. I just won't risk it. That might be another test actually. 60 degrees, put a crank in a hot wash for 20 minutes, 60 degrees, and we should measure it and decay it out. That'd be quite an interesting test actually.
That'd be a good video.
Is it possible for rings rotating the piston when the engine runs thus negated? Or we kind of covered that. Can I ask what engine log software you are using? It is Engine Logbook by what is the company? Performance Trends. That's who it is. They do loads of logbook software. Performance. So they do cam measuring tools, they do my valve spring measuring tools. So it's performance_trends. These guys.
Hang on. There we go. Hit them up.
AW Prentice. So I understand why you'd want to measure the diameter on a used piston, but why measure new pistons? Is it so you can match individual parts with any discrepancies in cylinder bore dimensions, or you could swap pistons round to obtain matching cylinder clearances, or is this just a precaution to ensure all pistons have been manufactured correctly? I'd understand it if you had 20 pistons, you pick the best 10 pistons, but that would be unreasonable for what you're doing. Right, we'll go back to the beginning because there's a couple of points in there. Why you'd want to measure a used piston, why measure new pistons? You measure everything. When you're engine building, you measure everything, because if you're just slapping stuff in, you're an engine assembler, not an engine builder. Everything has a specification, and you're trying to make sure what you're putting in your engine is to that specification. And when you're dealing to 3 decimal places, I had this with a conversation with a guy earlier about the different micrometers I was using. When you're dealing with 3 decimal places, your hand can't feel it, your eye can't see it, and you don't find out you fucked up until it doesn't work. So you measure everything and you double check everything. You measure twice, cut once. Because also, things can end up in wrong boxes. So you go, oh yeah, it's 10 pistons, let's start putting them together, and one's an 82mm piston and one's an 82.5mm piston. I've seen that done. I've seen that in an engine.
Yeah.
And you might laugh and sit there and go, how shocking is that? Yeah. Piston with a massive slap after a build, and we took it apart and it had 82mm pistons in an 82.5mm bore, or 84mm pistons in an 84.5mm bore, because it was a TTRS engine. So it can be done. You measure everything. That's just everything. Everything's measured, everything's documented. So you can go back and you can go, right, on this engine, on this date, I fitted those pistons with that part number, and they measured that with that batch code, and you just know exactly what's gone in your engine. You can juggle pistons around to match bores, but if you're having to do that, you've got a bigger problem. Your pistons shouldn't have that much variance, and your bore shouldn't have that much variance. I would never build an engine where I couldn't put one piston in any bore. So if I've got an engine where I've got a discrepancy across all bores, I've got to address that. If I've had a new set of pistons turn up and I've got a discrepancy between all 10, they're going back, which is why we use two piston manufacturers at the minute. We use CP and we use Italian RP, because they turn up, they do the job, they make the power, they're brilliant, they're high quality, and when you measure them, they are what they say on the sheet, which is everything you need. Is it a precaution to ensure pistons are being manufactured correctly? Yeah, it's absolutely that. You're double checking someone else's work, because when it blows up on your head, be it, you can't go to Carrillo and go, or CP or JE or any of these companies going, oh, your pistons were wrong, mate. You're always going to say the same thing. Didn't you measure it?
Yeah.
And that is it.
Yeah, end of.
Yeah. I'd understand it if you had 20 pistons, you'd pick the 10 best pistons. Right. This is a different thing. So what you're talking about there is almost blueprinting. And in certain rules, where I went and said you can machine parts, or you can remove material to balance parts, in certain rules you can't do that. You're not allowed to modify the reciprocating or rotating parts. So when we were building Supersport engines, I'd have 10 R6 pistons, and I'd pick 4 that were perfectly matched, and you'd batch sets. Now if you go to Yamaha, I say Yamaha because I've built so many engines of theirs, and you buy a kit set of pistons, they are matched to a better tolerance than what OEM pistons are. And they're not machined to be matched, they're just a guy with 50 pistons and he's going, right, there's a batch of 4, there's a batch of 4, because you can't modify the piston in racing. If you pull it apart and you've shaved the top of the rod, or you've shaved the piston, or whatever, in certain rules, in certain classifications, that's illegal. You'll be thrown out. So you have to use what's called homologated parts. They're not allowed to deviate away from what is supplied by the manufacturer. You've got to be careful with that. So that, in that instance, that's like a blueprint build. That's what I'd say, where you're blueprinting the engine to a specification, to a set of numbers, and I would have a batch of pistons to build that engine. Kind of felt a little bit rambly, that. Let's come back. So in certain rules where you're not allowed to modify the rods or the pistons at all, can't even balance them by machining them, that's what I would do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's in the rules. If they strip the engine and find you've modified parts, then it's completely against the rules. Yeah. So this is where, so for example, you get super specials. So the things like the BMW M1000RR, they start to become homologation specials. The Honda CBR SSP, or whatever it is. That's where the manufacturer will make the bike to a tolerance. They'll have titanium rods, titanium valve, all these sort of things, to have an advantage when they go racing, because the rules in that racing class say cannot deviate away from homologation. Yeah. So what it's made for the road for. So when you go back and you look at like a turn of the century Ducatis, where you had a 996 Bogo, and then you had a 996 SP, or these sort of special editions that had all these trick parts on them. It's so the manufacturer could go, yeah, we can race that one. You're not restricted by the roads. So you're getting into where road and race meet now. At the minute now, BMW M1000RR, the price cap in Superstock 1000, for example, is 34,000 euros or 34,000 pounds, whatever it is. You have to look at the rules up because they're all different for everywhere. The bike's under the rule cap, under price cap. So it's homologated, it's got aero, it's got all trick engine in it, and it meets a price cap. So again, it's how did we get there?
I don't know.
I don't even know.
It's
homologated. It's homologated parts. We go back 15 years when Aprilia were running in what was Evo at the time, and I'm sure it was by Spitlaff. The bike got disqualified from a British Superbike round. I'm sure it was at Cadwell, and they argued that the camshafts were illegal. The camshafts were remanufactured parts, but they were remanufactured to homologation, and the argument came down to 2 bits of paper, which maybe they weren't modified cams, or maybe they weren't remade cams. Maybe they were original cams. Anyway, it came down to a date break. It came down to 2 sets of homologation papers. MSVR had 1 set of papers, that's what it was. They were original cams, original engine. MSVR had 1 set of papers, and Aprilia had released a new bike with new papers. So the bike got disqualified to these papers. The team turned up with the new papers and went, hang on a minute, these work. I think it was like valve, it was camshaft related. I know it was camshaft related. So that's where homologation rules come into force. So that's why then you'd have parts matching as opposed to parts machining. I remember where we started. We had parts matching as opposed to parts machining. And yeah, it doesn't work on V10s because I'm not going to buy 20 pistons, or you're not going to buy 20 pistons for me to part match an engine. Yeah. When I can just do it with a belt sander. It's not a belt sander. I think.
So the homologation thing is interesting for cars as well.
That is a minefield, yes. So this is a difference between essentially GT4, GT3.
Yeah.
GT4 is road car for racing. GT3 is allowed different things on it to the GT4 car. So main things everybody always argues about is suspension pickups, stuff like that. So you can have a homologation special that might turn into a GT3, whereas a GT4, you look at a GT4 car basically and it looks like a more conventional. It's
more like a road car. Yeah.
And even that, I'm not 100% accurate in what I've said there, but we just end up getting into a rule book because you've got LMS, which is obviously sort of, they were R8 LMSs, you've got Super Treos, you've got GT4s, you've got GT3s, and it's not how it used to be back in the day where you said GT3 and that was a production version of a race car. Now it is slightly different. So there's caveats to it.
Yeah, a lot of grey areas.
Yeah, but essentially a GT4 is the closest you will get race car wise to a road car, and then GT3 is something else.
So there we go.
Thanks very much for coming.
Some pretty detailed taking questions this week.
It's a load of old crap if you ask me, mate. Where's the bin? Honestly, sometimes it just feels like a ramble. Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's not all right, but it's like everything. You can break that subject down. I make blanket statements, I think is the best way to say it. There is a lot more detail to be had in every aspect, but when you start to sort of break it down into, I don't know exactly what the rules are in 2023 for British Superbikes to build an engine because I haven't built an engine this year for a bike, but if you do, you have to know the rules. I know what the rules are for, say, running a car in Super Trofeo class or an LMS class because we build engines for those. I know what the rules are for if you want to stay inside GT3. I know what the rules are if you want to go and run a brick car. So you've just got to know what theatre you're performing in because it's easy to make a mistake. Is your battery fixed now?
It's replenished and raring to go.
Not ragging on all scrutineers, but where I think you always need to refresh the paddock, or basically you always need a poacher turned gamekeeper, is when the ZX10 came out, we were at SNET and these bikes were running in Superstock 1000s, and this was when we sort of figured out one thing was going on because we were running, I'll have to remember what Josh was running, But basically, they came out, this is when reflashing started to get bigger, when bikes had traction control and anti-wheelie and launch control, and the road bike is rubbish. All road bikes with traction control on are rubbish. They're getting better, but they're nowhere near the level of motorsport. So what the organisers did was they put a sticker over your ECU and over the connector to stop you unplugging the connector or getting in the back of the connector to go onto the wires where you could reflash the ECU. Everyone thought that was fixed. Nobody could possibly cheat. Yeah, what CAN bus wires? They go to the dash. So all everybody did was just pinned into the ECU at the dash. So then all of a sudden, bikes start turning up, and I remember a ZX10 being ridden by a certain South African rider at Snetterton, and he would come out a last turn. It would cock the wheel 6 inches in the air. It would sound like something out of MotoGP, and he would piss off up the road. And everybody else would come out and they'd either wheel spin because they've got traction off, or they'd wheelie, or traction would absolutely kill the bike. And yeah, that's when they figured out then that everybody was flashing ECUs through the dash.
Cheeky monkeys.
Yeah, so they're cheating.
Yeah.
But the problem is, because you don't have, you need a cheater trying to catch cheaters.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You walk around a paddock and it's people fight the grey areas, but there's all this nonsense at the minute now about so Dan Linfoot won Superstock 1000 class, and there's nonsense now that he cheated with, we don't even know what it is, so I won't even comment what it is, but a team have made a protest or made a complaint, and it's after like the protest time and stuff like that. So it's everybody's fighting grey areas, and it needs someone who knows more than the cheaters. If they're cheating, it needs someone smarter in the scrutineers knowing what's going on. Because it's all the time. Does anyone ever wonder why Alvaro, the first time he was riding that Ducati, he done, what did he do, like 11 races in a row, then like overnight he couldn't keep up with Johnny or Toprak and he was crashing every race? Yeah, it's because the organisers said you stop cheating or you're out. So the Ducati stopped cheating and now he's crashing trying to keep up. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't even know how we got there either.
Mate, there we go. Off on a tangent.
I know. I like a random tangent. Can you have a random tangent? Seems like a sign problem, that does. Anyway, smash buttons. I've probably said something libelous, so let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.